am your host, Jake Litke. Today we have Andrew McGraime on, and I'm just going to read his bio out here because there's a few things to cover. He is a founder at Canna Direct Mail, MBA graduate from USC Marshall School of Business. Andrew is a seasoned marketing executive who helps brands create impactful campaigns by leveraging the latest technologies and approaches. Andrew started his career in direct response advertising for Wunderman Thompson Agency. While there, he oversaw large-scale national direct mail campaigns for clients such as AT&T and DuPont. Andrew then spent over a decade in entertainment marketing, including roles as head of interactive marketing at Magnolia Pictures. They make some good films. Andrew brings extensive experience in direct mail, interactive, and branded acquisition strategies to cannabis marketing teams across the country. Okay, so now that we've got that covered, welcome. I'm excited to talk to you today because I am not a direct mail expert. We do digital marketing, we target people on their phones and desktops and whatnot. But I'm excited to learn what you've been doing specifically for cannabis brands. And I'd kind of like to start out by asking you why you decided to do this. As someone who's been in the cannabis space for a while, and anyone else who is in the space, there's a lot of challenges. And so, yeah, why did you start doing it, and kind of how did you get started, and what were the initial hurdles you faced? Because there's always hurdles in cannabis in getting started.
First off, Jake, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated. I'm looking forward to this opportunity and having this talk with you. So, as you talked about my background, I started in direct response advertising. So I had a pretty deep background in direct mail, then had extensive experience with digital marketing at Magnolia Pictures. And about 5 years ago, I really started paying attention to direct mail pieces I was getting in the mail. And I noticed a lot for big .com brands such as Casper and brands like that. And so I said, these guys can advertise everywhere they want, but they're using direct mail and it works for them as an ROI. So I said, well, why do I never see ads for cannabis companies? And so I looked into it. I spent about a year talking about initial hurdles. I had to figure out if it's legal. Would the USPS even mail ads for cannabis companies if it's federally not legal? And so I kind of overcame all those hurdles, figured out the legality, and then launched the company. And to be honest, like right out of the gate, it was very successful. I mailed to, in that first year, much of Southern California multiple times. And we were one of the early companies in this space, and really were able to have a lot of success. And it's kind of grown from there, and it's been really exciting.
That's great. That's somewhat of an anomaly for people to come out, especially in marketing, and have initial success. So
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the channel and obviously your expertise. Now, you did direct mail for large companies in the past, so you had obviously some experience in terms of how you craft a message and what you put on it. I get, lots of mailers. I still get value pack.
Yep.
That doesn't seem to ever go away.
Yeah.
Or pack. How did that, like, what were the types of tactics that you had seen when working with large brands that you immediately brought over in terms of best practices for someone who wants to send stuff to people's house?
So a couple of things. One is don't bury the offer. Make it, and the kind of key messaging. Make it large. Make it impactful. Make it on both sides of the piece. So you basically, like anything, you have a couple of seconds to get somebody's attention. In addition, making the size of the mailer significant, so it's hopefully larger than other pieces of mail that people are getting. So it's something where immediately they're going to pull it out of their mailbox and look at it. And that's why we really guide our customers to go for kind of a larger format, which is a 4.25 by 10.5. So it'll be larger than bills. It won't get hidden in the mail. It'll be like on a nice thick piece of paper. It has a glossy finish. And we encourage our customers to use appropriate like imagery, product shots, and making it very clear it's for cannabis, using the term cannabis and making it kind of large and a part of it. You don't want to be in a kind of a general mailing too discreet. You want people to see this, recognize it, see the offer, and then act.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there, when it comes to, and I'm going to translate a lot of the stuff that I know from digital,
Yeah.
offers certainly make a big impact.
Yep.
And we've even found, because we run, hundreds of campaigns, we see some differences just on the offer specifically itself, on the engagement on a, 15 versus 20 versus 30 versus whatever crazy discount people are coming
Yep.
up with. Um, have you seen enough data to give people guidance on, if you're going to do an offer, what's an appropriate, buy one, get one for a penny, or a percentage that seems to get better engagement than others?
Yeah, it definitely kind of depends on the area and the level of competition around your store. So if you're in a super competitive market, you're going to have a stronger offer. If you're in maybe a more rural area with not a lot of stores, you can get away with a lower offer. But definitely, the ones that seem to work the best are percentage offs. Whether that's kind of as low as 15, and we have people that go up to 40% for especially like a new customer. But yeah, that's kind of the framework. We've had people that try to do like a free joint or those kinds of things, or very like low monetary amounts off, and those do not have the same level of engagement. Kind of a free joint is almost worthless, and customers kind of know that and recognize that.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's talk about targeting, right? There's a very real cost to putting something in the mail, printing it,
Yep.
all of that. It's a little bit different than like a
Postage.
display
Yeah.
ad on digital. There's no real physical cost to it, so
Yep.
you can put out a lot more of them from a ROAS perspective. So what are the techniques that you use and work with your advertisers on, in terms of who do we want to target, and who's going to be more likely to engage?
So cannabis use is very broad across various demos, which is a good thing. So we can try a lot of different tactics, and there's direct mail lists for anything that you can imagine. One of our most successful tactics is we have a data partner that provides 21 plus cannabis user lists. And so they go out once a quarter, determine cannabis use in the past 60 days through a survey, and then model those people to a broader population, matching about 1,700 attributes. We've had a lot of success with this. This is very similar to a lookalike profile that would be done in digital space. And this data also can be used in digital campaigns. And so we've had a lot of success with this. People are verified to be 21 plus through government data, which is key as well. Another tactic is we can look at first party data and build custom lists for customers. We can look at their top performing customers and build lists off of those people. And in addition, there's just thousands of lists you can use outside of those things. I have a client right now that's mailing around retirement communities in New Jersey and doing 55 plus mailings in around those spaces. Senior citizens is the fastest growing cannabis segment right now. In addition, we've done Spanish language creative directed to Spanish speakers. We've done new movers. So if you're a dispensary, you get a new mover into your community. That's a key person. You want to get that person before they go to another store. We've done mailings in the medicinal market around people with chronic conditions, and that's been successful as well. And then we've also done mailings. There's a great high performing list for heavy video game users, people that are very active, and the alignment between obviously video game users and cannabis use is very, very high. And so that actually performed really well too. So there's a number of opportunities to work with. I really would at some point like to get a customer to go after soccer moms with like a very specific creative in that space with edibles or drinks, because I think like that could be kind of something exciting and something that would work well that nobody's tried yet.
Yeah, maybe that'll calm down the soccer parent friction that happens.
Yes, mellow them out.
Oh, no, it's just a game. It's going to be okay. And they're only 8 years old. It's not a big deal.
Yes.
So you mentioned first party data. What does that mean exactly? So obviously people, dispensaries get different amounts of data from their customers. Some people are
Mhm.
collecting, depending on the state and what the rules are and what they're collecting. Sometimes people have addresses, but frequently they're just going to have like an email address
Mhm.
or a phone number. How does that work if you just have email addresses?
So our data partner can match email address, phone number to a physical address with very high success rate. Yeah. So that's kind of our process, and we're very lucky to have a good partner in that space that's able to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned the retirement communities. The city I live in Walnut Creek, and in Walnut Creek, and I'm in California. This city doesn't have any dispensaries.
Mhm.
And there's a retirement community. It's rather large. It's called
Yep.
Rossmore, and the Rossmore cannabis community is actually suing this city right now, to get them to allow cannabis licenses,
Okay.
in the city because they don't really want to do delivery very much, and they don't necessarily want to drive out
Yeah.
to one of the surrounding areas. It's definitely it's a big community for sure.
Yep, no, it is, and we've had a lot of success with it, and yeah, and it's a group where direct mail works very well. They're used to it. They've been experiencing direct mail messages for their entire lives, and they're very responsive to coupons and offers too. So.
And what's the breakdown for your clients in terms of how many people are, putting a QR code or URL with a specific offer related to it versus people actually just walking into the dispensary with the card? I'm kind of
I'd
like
say
get the breakdown online versus offline.
Yeah, I'd say about it's right now maybe 50-50. A lot of people like to collect them in stores and kind of measure it that way. But then there's also a number of clients that are using QR codes and measuring web traffic and pre-orders or delivery customers that are just engaging with their delivery service online. So it just kind of varies, but we see both tactics. And we can also look at first party data, match it to the mailing list to see who came in during a 60-day window after the mailing.
Oh, so you can do like a post campaign, look at like what the POS system and say
Yep,
these people came in and we know we sent them mail.
yep, yep. And then we can see kind of what those people were buying, and then build custom lists off of that going into the future. Say this this is a valuable customer. They're spending a lot of money. This group of people, let's build lists off of those people. Or these people are coming in and buying flour or vapes, and we can kind of have customers tailor messages to kind of those lookalike profiles too.
So, there's probably a range that you see of ROAS, right? So for us, dispensaries very much care about how many dollars are putting out, how many dollars are getting in. We can see digital campaigns on average kind of somewhere around the five axis. It goes up and down depending on what else is happening. But
Yep.
do you have a range that you kind of publicly speak to when you're talking to a new advertiser of this is what we tend to see on the low end and the high end, for the dollars in versus orders driven?
Yeah, it's definitely similar to what you mentioned in that five-ish area. And we know that we're, competing against not just other direct mail companies, but all other types of advertising mediums out there. So we make an effort to really keep our costs down. And we use our economies of scale of printing and techniques to kind of limit postage costs to really make sure that it's a competitive vehicle compared to other tactics out there.
So does that mean basically you get economies of scale because you're kind of operating at a bulk level, and then the
Yeah.
individual advertisers are getting the benefit of that?
Yes. Yeah.
And that
We're
applies to
print-
both the printing and the
yeah.
mailing?
Yeah, printing and then and mailing as well. Yeah.
What is the turnaround time on, let's say I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do a campaign. Let's just assume that the creative process itself just happens.
Mhm.
That's sometimes the biggest delay in a campaign is getting the creative
Yes.
done. But that's kind of out of,
Yep.
or do you do that for them?
So we do for some clients. Most people have their own design teams in-house or that they're working with on other creative. So I'd say it's about 90 something percent are submitting their own creative to us.
All
But
right.
we
So,
help guide them in terms of the process, what it should look like, placement of things, offers, those kinds of things.
all right. So let's say I've got my creative ready to go. I come to you, and I say, I want to send these, I want to send out mailers.
Mhm.
I'm assuming there's a intermediate conversation of, well, who do you want to send them to? How big
Yep.
of a radius? Let's just say I've opened a new dispensary, the first one in Walnut Creek that doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Um, and I come in, I don't know anything about mailing. Like, what are the first kind of steps you walk me through in terms of um, helping me be successful?
Yep. So we look at your store locations. We figure out what kind of list you want to mail to first and what kind of mailer you want to send. We look at your store locations, and then our minimum quantity is 10,000 mailers. So we'll tell you what radius it is to hit those 10,000. And then we'll give you a sense of how you can scale it beyond that and what that would look like. And then we'll walk you through the creative process. You'll submit that to us, and we'll turn around the data for you. Um, we'll turn around a proof in about 24 hours, and that's what we're actually going to go to print with. And then from that point to being in homes is, depending on where it is, roughly about 3 weeks. Could be as little as 2 weeks. And we're kind of beholden to the USPS and their schedule and how they deliver mail. And seasonally, there's impacts there. But it's roughly about 3 weeks. But we have a lot of rush campaigns. I'm sure that you do too. It's cannabis space.
Yeah.
There's some groups that plan really far in advance, and other ones are like, we got to hit this in like 2 weeks, and we can do it. We can move real fast if need be, and the stars align, and we can get things in homes pretty quickly.
Okay. Great. I'm gonna ask some of these questions. We do have some questions coming in. I'm just gonna kind of bring them in line as they come up.
Cool.
We've got a question from Naima, not sure how to pronounce his name, but for direct consumer mailer, are you using cold traffic or targeting people who've purchased before? So this gets into segmenting coming from the dispensary itself.
Yep.
What do
Yes.
people, I haven't asked you this question first, which
Yep.
is, we frequently have people that come to the table with some preconceived notions about what they want to do. And
Mhm.
sometimes they're incorrect just because they don't have experience in that particular category. Um, so yeah, let's walk me through how you approach segmenting the mailers.
So you're saying if we are kind of like just going out to a new set of customers or attracting?
I think the question is, well, I said cold traffic, which I guess
Yeah.
would just be everyone, and we're not really doing that. But there's a question about purchasers, right? So,
Yep.
like, do you have instances where you send something different to existing or
Okay.
past purchasers versus someone
Yep.
who has never been a customer?
Yeah. So our recommendation for kind of interacting with existing customers is to actually send a different type of mailer. So we prefer to send a folded piece. So the outside would be pretty generic. We'll just have a logo. There'll be a little bit of a tab on top. It's not folded completely in half. And that tab will have the offer on it, some kind of CTA, and then inside will be the broader messaging. The reason we do that is not all of your customers live in homes where everybody knows that they're going to cannabis shops, and so you don't want to piss people off. And so it's like a more discreet way to interact with these people. And we've had a lot of success with this kind of mailing. It costs a little bit more than kind of approach where we're just doing the 4 1/4s by 10 1/2s because it's a little bit more involved. But they performed really well, and it definitely helps avoid any uncomfortable situations with your existing customers where they might be getting pissed off that you're sending something to their home.
Right. So you need to maybe include some plausible deniability in the, I don't know why we got this. Just, they must be mailing them to everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. We have another question specifically about QR code tracking.
Yep.
And the question is, do you do dynamic QR codes? And I think what the question is like, is it possible to print a unique code on each mailer so that you know who was sent to? Is that possible?
Yes, you can do all of that. When we're using our data partner and they're kind of matching the send list to the POS system, that works in the same fashion too.
So just to be clear, let's say I'm doing a 10,000 mailers.
Yeah,
I can effectively have 10,000 different URLs in the QR code.
yeah, variable printing. It adds to the cost of the piece, but yes, there's variable printing you can do.
Okay. That gets pretty granular then. Then you can,
Yeah.
if someone clicks on it, that, this address is the one that engaged with the mailer.
Yep.
Now, how do you do like sequential messaging in the sense that how many of your advertisers are sending something every month, every couple of weeks, once a quarter? What's a common frequency?
It really depends on the client. So I have delivery customers that will kind of do a mailing every 2 weeks. But they're hitting different areas and they service a large area. So if you're trying to target the very same population, we would recommend you space those out by probably like once a quarter. But if you're in a dense area, the list is very robust and large, and so you can mail for the cannabis users list. So you can mail definitely like every 2 weeks or every month and not hit the same people twice with a pretty reasonable budget.
Yeah. In terms of scale, you mentioned 10,000 pieces is the minimum.
Yeah.
What would you say the average size is? And then I'm kind of just curious about what the largest one that you've ever done is in terms of like one large batch.
Yeah. So I'd say the average is in the 25 to 30K range. And then largest is in the hundreds of thousands at once. And you do get savings for something like that. And then we also have clients that will plan things out ahead of time. So for the next couple of quarters, and they'll commit and they'll say, we're going to print 250,000, 500,000 today. And then, just send this batch this month and this batch this month. And so if you're printing everything at the same time, that's where you really get good volume savings.
So you can print the whole batch at once.
Yep.
Then
Yeah.
kind of bank them and
then,
hopefully
yep.
Change your mind
Yep.
on what you want on the mailer.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. But we do, especially with large MSOs where they're really, doing annual budgets and kind of a little bit more forward thinking and kind of know what they're able to spend over the remainder of the year. They're able to do that process.
Okay.
And be okay with it.
That makes sense. We've got a question here about how do you personalize if you print in bulk? We mentioned that you've got variable printing for the QR codes. We also talked about maybe wanting to keep things somewhat anonymous. Do you have any customers that are putting someone's name on the mailer, like, hey, Bob, we love you, come back, or
not actually on the mailer itself, in terms of hey Bob, but it'll be kind of in the address section, addressed to a person. And we have some customers that don't want to do that and just keep it generic, like resident or whatever, in the address box. But that maybe can provide some cover for you that we're verifying this is a 21 plus person that's receiving the mail. So there might be some advantages around that with cannabis control boards.
Great. Got another question here from Chad Arundel. That's a name I haven't seen in a while. We used to work together at a mobile ad network like
Okay.
a while back. He's asking, does protected health information, PHI compliance, play a role in how you're able to target? I know, especially in states that are medical only, I think there's some slightly different opinions on it, but one could argue that's a medical customer. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we've done some campaigns for kind of medicinal only customers, and we've done some campaigns for their existing customer base. And so we have to abide by HIPAA rules with something like that. So we actually use a printer that is HIPAA verified and has secure data transfer so that all their information is protected. But yes, that does come into play, especially if you're dealing with their first party data, which is their actual patients.
Yeah. Do you ever run into situations where people just choose to not use their first party data because they're concerned from a legal perspective or some other, they just like, oh, I don't like doing that.
Yeah, and we have a number of customers that like aren't comfortable sharing that information. Honestly, like our general 21 plus cannabis user list performs extremely well. And so it's not even required. It's just nice to have, and you'll get better response, but you'll still get very strong response just with the kind of more general 21 plus cannabis user list that's not modeled off of first party data.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about ROAS, but just from a sort of high level aggregate data perspective, what is a percentage of engagement rate for a mailer, either online or walking in?
Yeah, so it can be as high as 10%. So it can be a really effective tactic that definitely rivals a lot of other advertising mediums out there. And yeah, we have clients that are just kind of blown away with the initial response, and then kind of bring us into their kind of annual marketing budget, and then we're doing ads every 2 weeks.
Okay, great. And now I want to talk a little bit about and we talked about this in the past, and we haven't really executed this. We have the technical capabilities to do it. This particular topic is something we've been talking to our advertisers about. There's two big categories for us as a business. One is getting cannabis companies to go more into the video section of advertising. There's a lot of opportunity there. It's a less crowded space. We do now have channels that will take cannabis ads, but it's been a struggle to get advertisers. I think there's a little bit of an uphill battle in terms of getting the videos produced. Right? It's not as easy as just getting a banner, although you can make pretty simple CTV ads. But back on topic, the other thing is combining the combination of the physical direct mail with a digital campaign, right? Because we work with the same data partner that you do for some of our audiences. And so there's a Rosetta Stone there. You've got a customer, you're going to send them something in the mail. We can do a similar thing, which is, be sending display ads or video ads to the same household, either, before, during, and after a campaign to support it. I know that I think we've talked about it a little bit. Have you had interest from any of your advertisers when you start to bring up the concept?
I think so, and I think this is going to be the year that we were able to really like take that to the next level, because everything should be connected, and it makes sense. I mean, we're both using the same data provider, and obviously, there's bit more cost that goes into sending direct mail pieces. And so, we can do an initial wave, bring people in, and you can do follow-ups with either the people that didn't come in or the people that did come in, and kind of test different unique messages for those people to try to motivate them to either come back or come in the first time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you now your name is Canna Direct Mail, so it's obviously right on the cannabis button. Do you find, because for us, one of the things we found is, we work with agencies a lot that need help, supporting cannabis. They get a client because someone they know opened a dispensary, and they come to us with, cannabis clients. But then
Yep.
the next question is, oh, we have these other clients. It's like a auto repair place or a bank or a restaurant or these other
Yep.
types of marketers. And we absolutely, it's the same machine, right? We can run campaigns for anything. Have you run any stuff for non-cannabis clients that have come in at all?
Yes, a few kind of local businesses we've done campaigns for, and then kind of another area that we've been focusing in is another somewhat regulated industry around ketamine treatment facilities, and that's been a big push for us and will continue to be for this year. And so that we try to focus on regulated industries where we have expertise and we can provide great value. And so for ketamine treatment facilities, same kind of process, but it's more aligned with the medicinal space for cannabis, where there's HIPAA rules involved, and you have to just kind of be careful about patient confidentiality. But we're able to target very specific lists. There's great lists for that around people that may display anxiety or depression, or targeting veterans for PTSD. So there's a lot of kind of avenues that we can explore there too.
Yeah, I'm curious, a little bit of a sidebar, but
Yeah.
the ketamine treatment industry as a whole, I don't know a ton about it. Is it only in certain states? How large is that market? I mean, what does that look like?
We've done campaigns in a number of states. It's pretty broad. It's considered kind of an off-label treatment. So basically, ketamine is a drug that's used in medical procedures all the time, but this is an off-label application. But I've actually gone into a facility here in Los Angeles, and it's a full medical facility. They have an anesthesiologist that's administering it, and it feels like you're going into a doctor's office. Some insurance pays for it, but not a lot. So it is a very expensive treatment. And so our customers are always seeking people over 100K household income. But yeah, it's been successful so far, and a nice kind of offshoot. We aren't focusing on anything else in the psychedelic space because it's very questionable about the legality of those things. So we try to keep it somewhat safe with what we do.
Yeah. Are there any other ways that you've worked with your dispenser back on the cannabis side, your
Yeah.
dispensary customers to help them better leverage because you're helping them with first party data, right? And once
Yep.
you start using first party data, that opens up some new thinking and strategies. What are some of the other ways, if any, that you're helping, like with making people be aware of what they can do with their first party data?
Yeah, so I think one avenue is this year really working with people like MediaJel and kind of combining efforts and showing that we can use this data to build lookalike profiles, and then do direct mail campaigns or digital campaigns. We can really segment well, so you can send specific messages for the soccer moms that might be buying more of the edibles and drinks, or the younger consumer that might be more interested in flower. You can do different deals for people that are kind of heavy users versus someone that's a lighter user. So there's a lot of avenues to explore kind of once you dig into your data and figure out kind of how you can reach those people efficiently.
Do people ever use the same sort of mailer creative for like doing bag inserts? Is that a thing?
Yeah. So, I had a client recently that, and I think this is fairly common in cannabis, where they'll have a successful small business, whether that's a pizza chain or whatever, and then they open a cannabis store. And so I have a customer in Illinois that we did some flyers. They did a mailing, and then we had some left over because it's never a precise science. You're not printing exactly what they need. There's always a bit of an overrun, and then we sent those to them to insert into their pizza deliveries. So they were driving people from their pizza customers to their cannabis store. And then there's another approach that we're doing where we're essentially helping dispensaries monetize kind of that real estate that they have in dispensary bags for non-cannabis brands. So it's kind of another thing where I saw with .com. You'll get a .com package, and there'll be inserts in there for other brand partners who are paying for that real estate. And so you go to a dispensary and you'll get flyers for cannabis brands, things that they cover, or for the store themselves. But I hadn't seen any ads for, say, Carl's Jr. or whatever in a dispensary bag. So I actually have a number of partners lined up, and we're going to be launching it in the next coming months. And so basically, we're going to sell that ad inventory in their dispensary bags for non-cannabis brands. So
Pizza
things
company.
things like fast food, things like video games. The challenge with that is that there's obviously like a big stigma around cannabis, and some brands can kind of get scared about working with cannabis brands, but it's going away in a number of places, and people are getting more comfortable with it and experimenting with doing special campaigns or products around 420 is like a big thing that you see out there. So there are a number of big companies that are interested in kind of reaching this market, and these are customers that are most likely going to be consuming cannabis pretty soon after getting that bag, and you're getting a message to them for order a pizza or get a burger or use Postmates or whatever. And it's a very captive, targeted audience that can work really well. And then I've also partnered with a street team company in LA, and we're going to be doing an initiative in the next month where we have a large streamer that's already signed up to basically building like a mini booklet for a series that they have going on. And we have cannabis brand partners that are coming in, and they're going to help distribute some of these booklets in their dispensary bags in turn for some kind of free real estate in this booklet that's going to be with street teams outside of LA for a course of a month, being handed out to about 20,000 to 50,000 people. So there's a lot of interesting partnerships that can kind of happen in this space. And there are people that are kind of now exploring ways to kind of all work together, and it's exciting.
Yeah, we have a lot of conversations with our advertisers about trying to remember that your cannabis consumer that you're so focused on that they consume cannabis has a whole rich life outside of cannabis, and they
Yep.
prioritize all kinds of different activities and lots of different interests.
Yep.
Finding the way where those intersect can be a pretty powerful strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we just think this is a great way. We know, in some markets in particular, it's hard out there for cannabis companies, and this is a way to really like have an additional revenue stream coming in to your store, and also like giving your customers relevant offers. So it's not going to be just a bunch of trash. It's like things that are highly connected to kind of the synergies of a cannabis consumer and X brand, and providing like a real value with the offer.
Yeah. Have you seen, because frequently we'll drive traffic for cannabis companies, especially D2C ones, to educational material, right? Because there's still a big education gap, with lots of people about what cannabis is, how it works, which kind of what you should or shouldn't be doing. How often are your advertisers trying to include some level of educational tidbits in the mailer at all? Is that a thing that happens?
That definitely is, and they'll can talk about kind of the effects of different strains or whatever, and it does exist. I'd say most customers are really kind of more generic with the messaging, and it's more about like just getting somebody in the store with a very kind of strong offer, and not crowding the piece with too much text. It's really just like throw it out there and make it large and in their face, and then get people in, and then you can kind of educate customers when they come into the store.
Okay. I'm bouncing around here, so
Yeah.
bear with me. Back to the dynamic printing or variable printing. Let's say I want to do, 20,000 mailers and I have five different segments. I've got like a senior segment, gamer segment, you know, power user segment.
Yep.
Am I able to take the 20,000 mailers and break that up into like five different creative executions and then send those to different people?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
You can.
that's an easy one then. Try to come up with harder questions. We do have I answered some of the questions. For anyone that's at least in Zoom, you can ask questions in the Q&A. Maybe we can figure out some hard questions for Andrew because he seems to have easy answers for all of my questions. Um, all right, so I'll ask a little bit more about things that you have seen that have been very successful, right? What are some examples, campaigns that you've run that are really kind of the top tier, they've knocked it out of the park? And in that cohort of campaigns, are there some common threads of the types of creative or the offers that you would, the people could use for inspiration?
Yeah, so when we're first onboarding a customer, we'll send them creative examples of past campaigns that we like and we think that have performed well, but also look good and kind of check all the boxes. Kind of went through some of this, but it's just making it big, impactful, easy to read. Both sides of the piece is key. So you don't want somebody that just quickly glances at one side of a piece and doesn't know what it's for like immediately. They have to really, and so we really like hammer that home with our clients that it needs to be very clear on both sides what you're selling, and what the offer is and what you want people to do with this mailer. Another thing is the imagery that people use. We use like a nice UV coating on it, so it has like a very kind of like glossy, shiny appearance. So images really like pop and they look good, and so you need to really kind of find whether it's an assortment of product shots, or like a beautiful shot of a flower or what have you, but something that really like takes advantage of that, helps a lot with engagement and kind of getting people to interact with the ad. And yeah, that's basically it. Our worst performing campaigns are when somebody just kind of, we say, oh, you should make these changes like this. We don't think that this is really going to check the boxes, or for some reason you left all this blank space and you don't really need to do that. Or the colors aren't really flowing together. Like we'll help you figure this out. And then some people are just like, oh, no, no, we're just going to send it like it is. And then the offer's buried and it's small to read. And those don't perform well. So it's, we try to guide people as much as possible. You're going to spend X amount of money just on getting these things into a home. It's like you want to make sure that you make the best impression when you're there.
Yeah, let's talk about spend X amount of money.
Yeah,
What is you don't have to get into specifics, but
yeah.
general range, what are people looking at on a price per piece or how, yeah, I'm sure you price it, that's how you price it, but
Yep.
what's someone getting into if they want to do a minimum order of 10,000 mailers? What does that look like?
So the cost is around 61 cents a home all in for 10,000 homes at one creative. And so it's $6,100. And that's for the 4¼ by 10.5 inch mailer. Costs kind of vary. I mean, you can do a smaller piece. You can do pieces on that's 16-point paper, so it's thicker paper. You could do mailings on thinner paper that saves you a little bit of money. You can do pieces without the UV coating that saves you a little bit of money. You could do pieces that are half the size. That'll save you a fair amount of money. We have some clients that will do saturation mailings. So essentially, that's where you're not using the 21 plus cannabis use list, but you're essentially mailing to every home along a postal route. And the reason that that's cheaper is because the postage is just a lot cheaper for something like that. But those can be very effective, especially around new store openings. Cannabis use is pretty broad, and our approach for that to provide some degree of targeting is we'll look at zip codes, and we have data that shows us cannabis use at the zip code level from a company called Distillery, and we're able to kind of find the right areas to mail around your dispensary with some data that'll give us a clue, and that's worked well. Also, the way we make sure that those are 21 plus is the census does an annual survey called the American Community Survey, and that gives you age composition for a zip code. And so in states that require it to be 21 plus 100%, you can't do this tactic. But if they say it's 85% or whatever 21 plus, you're able to figure out areas that kind of can meet that. So
Yeah. We have, different rules in different states. I mean,
yeah,
there's literally thousands of laws just in the US around digital advertising. We have you can show for digital, you can show different things in different states from the creative perspective. Like, so some states you can show a picture of flower in a digital ad, others you can't. Almost nobody wants you to show pictures of consumption. And sometimes you can use product photography
yeah,
and sometimes you can't.
yeah.
How does that vary, or is it not covered? Is it kind of like a free-for-all, or from the actual imagery you can use?
Yeah, so same rules that would apply to other advertising tactics would apply to direct mail. To be honest, direct mail is not specifically like called out in a lot of rules. We just go by the guidelines of other kind of advertising tactics. But yeah, in terms of kind of avoiding certain imagery, for the most part, a lot of states where we've been fine with showing flower and product shots. It's kind of the more like basic things of like nothing appealing to children, which could be anything from like a cartoon type character or whatever. Or some states have even had issues with certain fonts that that people use. The other thing is just a lot of states will have specific kind of warnings that need to be put on ads, and so those can be there. We encourage the clients to always put this offers for people 21 plus, even if we're sending to a 21 plus person, just as just to cover yourselves. The other thing is having kind of opt-out messaging on there. So creating an email so people can opt out of future mailings is another kind of big thing to include there.
And have you had
And
examples? Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry, one more thing is like some states also don't allow couponing and
Okay.
offers. Yeah, so that's in Mass and New York are big ones for that. We do a lot of mailings there, and we do them very successfully. We have some customers that there's some workarounds. You're able to the Mass you're allowed to advertise pricing, so you can set as long as it's matching what's in the store. So you can kind of advertise a certain price and then match that in the store for everybody, but use that as kind of an incentive for people to come in. You can give offers for people in loyalty programs. So you can encourage people to sign up for a loyalty program to get an offer. So there's kind of different workarounds, and we help clients kind of achieve that.
Do you run into, I know that we have to deal with in some specific states like Minnesota, Pennsylvania, OMA in Florida, we actually have to get the creative concepts approved by the government agency
Yep.
prior to mailing it. Do you have to do the same thing?
Yep. Yep. We've done that in Pennsylvania, and they approved it. So, and
Yeah.
that was one, yeah, where it was medicinal, and I think we were dealing with like the HIPAA rules there. So it was a bit of work to navigate everything. But the Pennsylvania Control Board had no issue with kind of a direct mail piece or that tactic or kind of
Yeah.
our approach to measuring 21 plus or any of that stuff.
Yeah, the bummer is when that person goes on vacation though, which has happened to us, right? So we're trying to run a campaign, they're like,
There's
oh,
no
they're here for
backup.
2 weeks. You're like, yeah, where's the other person that can approve this?
Oh, that's funny. I didn't have that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's never a shortage of surprises.
I
Uh,
know. Of course, I'm sure like alcohol companies aren't having to approve all their ads for this stuff. So it's like
yeah,
it's
we get
insane.
special treatment.
Yeah.
What is an example of some potentially more creative things people have done with their mailers? Like, can I do like a strawberry cough, scratch and sniff mailer, or maybe one with like tear off crutches or like cutouts or what? Has anyone gotten creative like that?
Yeah. So we are actually working with a customer who's doing a scratch and sniff.
Really?
Yeah.
I made that up. I thought that was not a
Yeah,
thing.
legitimately, they're doing that. They are a vape company, and they wanted to. So when we work with products, a lot of times we'll just encourage them to partner up with a dispensary, and then we'll do the process of figuring out kind of an area around that dispensary, and there'll be some kind of co-op relationship with them where they're kind of each contributing to the ad. But yeah, they're gonna do a scratch and sniff ad, and yeah, it's my first one, so that I've done
What?
for a
So are
cannabis
they
company.
like, were they putting like terpenes in it, or is it like a raspberry? Like, what is it
It's
actually?
it's more fruity flavor. So my
Okay.
recommendation to them was do not have this smell like cannabis
Right.
because we're still using a federal agency to deliver these pieces
Yeah.
of mail. So yeah, it's like, whatever, orange and strawberry and like that
Saurus
kind of
Rex
stuff.
or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, legitimately they're doing a scratch and sniff, and I thought that's genius. It's a good way to stand out.
Yeah. Um, any other examples of the creative things that people have done with it, to make it stand out more, like it's like weird shapes or
Some people will do we can do perforated coupons, so that's another aspect. It will add a little bit of cost. If you want to put coupons on where you're requiring people to either just bring the whole thing in or cut it out along a dotted line, like that's just the standard cost. But then when we have to start die cutting things, there is an added cost with that. But we do have customers that like that tactic. And then, yeah, it's mainly like kind of the most out there was just that the scratch and sniff. A lot of the creativity is more about like kind of the placement of content, whether instead of like going everything across horizontal, using a very like large image that's going vertically. Where we had a customer that used like a very like large, beautiful shot of their flower that went vertical across the whole 10 and a half inches of the thing almost on one side, which was really like impactful and stands out.
that's cool. Have you seen anyone do, I know that with some of the generative AI, you can now say, this is my QR code and I want it to look like a snowy mountain or whatever it is.
Okay. No,
Someone
we
put
have
a
not
QR
had
code in a
anybody do
bud?
that. Yeah, no, I have not had anybody do that. Yeah, I'll recommend that though. I like
Yeah,
that.
I think that would look cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all right, great. Well, we're running up on time here. We've answered some questions. If anyone has any last questions, speak now, while we're wrapping up. What is a good way for people to get a hold of you if they want to ask you questions or see if it would be a good fit?
Yeah, so my email is andrew@cannadirectmail.com and our website is cannadirectmail.com. Two best ways. You can also find me on LinkedIn under my name, Andrew McGraime. I'm the only one. There's not a lot of McGraimes out there.
Yeah,
I'm,
there's
I'm
not very many
directly,
Litkeys either.
yeah.
Although someone did connect with me with my exact name recently. It was like another Jake Litkey.
Oh, okay.
There's more than one of me out there.
I'm
Uh,
pretty much like directly related to and know whoever is named McGraime.
okay.
So you will find me under Andrew McGraime. I don't think there's another one on LinkedIn, and you can just DM me. And I pride myself in turning things around very quickly and being super responsive and small business where we work long hours and I each client is like vastly important to us, whether it's kind of the small mom and pop or it's the big MSO. We treat you guys all the same.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we also have, a range of customers, people that have
Yeah.
one small store in a rural area, to, large MSOs. So,
Yep.
and I can attest to your responsiveness and in the handful of email chains that we've been on. You're Johnny on the spot with the
Yes.
responses.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to us talk about mail, which was an interesting topic for me. I learned a lot, coming from a primarily digital background. This has been a fun episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. I'm Jake Litkey, your host, CEO of MediaJel. If you do have questions about digital advertising, I can be found, jake@mediajel.com. Pretty simple. Once again, Andrew, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for paying attention. Bye.
Cheers.